Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Prabhu, Paramahamsa, Guruji Acharya, Ashtotar, the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON DVD founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa, Guruji Acharya, Ashtotar, the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai, Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Ranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and to Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 On this 21st day of June 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 2, Daksha curses Lord Shiva. Text number 3. Etadakyahi me Brahman. Etadakyahi me Brahman. Jamatu Shvasurasya cha. Jamatu Shvasurasya cha. Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Etadakyahi me brahman
Etadakyahi me brahman
Jamatu shvasarasya cha
Jamatu swasarasya cha
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Etadakyahi me brahman
Etadakyahi me brahman
Jamatu shvasarasya cha
Jamatu swasarasya cha
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Tatyaje dustyajan sati.
Tatyaje dustyajan sati.
You're up.
Etadakyahi me brahman
Etadakyahi me brahman
Jamatu swasarasya cha
Jamatu shvasarasya cha Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Etadakyahi me brahman
Etadakyahi me brahman
Jamatu shvasarasya cha
Jamatu shvasarasya cha
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Tatyaje dustyajan sati.
Etadakyahi me brahman
Etadakyahi me brahman
Jamatu swasarasya cha
Jamatu shvasarasya cha
Vidveshas tuyatah pranams
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Tatyaje dustyajan sati. You want to try again?
Etadakyahi me brahman
Etadakyahi me brahman
Jamatu swasarasya cha
Jamatu shvasarasya cha
Vidveshtu yatah pranams
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Tatyaje dustyajan sati.
Etadakyahi me brahman
Etadakyahi me brahman
Jamatu swasarasya cha
Jamatu shvasarasya cha
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Vidveshas tuyatah pranans
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Tatyaje dustyajan sati.
Etadakyahi me brahman
Etadakyahi me brahman
Jamatu shvasarasya cha
Jamatu shvasarasya cha
Vidveshas tuyatah pranams
Vidveshas tuyatah pranams
Tatyaje dustyajan sati
Tatyaje dustyajan sati. Etat thus Akyahi. Please tell me to me Brahman or Brahmana Jamatu of the son-in-law Lord Shiva Shvasarasya of the father-in-law Daksha Cha and Vidvesha quarrel to as to Yatah from what cause Pranan her life Tatyaje gave up Dustyajan which is impossible to give up Sati. Translation. My dear Maitreya, to part with one's life is very difficult. Would you kindly explain to me how such a son-in-law and father-in-law could quarrel so bitterly that the great goddess Sati could give up her life? Now, who's speaking here?
Sorry?
Yes, Vidura. No purport? I'll go on, just English. The sage Maitreya said, in a former time, the leaders of the universal creation performed the great sacrifice in which all the great sages, philosophers, demigods, and fire gods assembled with their followers. Purport. Upon being asked by Vidura, the sage Maitreya began to explain the cause of the misunderstanding between Lord Shiva and Daksha, because of which the goddess Sati gave up her body. Thus begins the history of a great sacrifice performed by the leaders of the universal creation, namely Marichi, Daksha, and Vasishta. These great personalities arranged for a great sacrifice, for which demigods like Indra and the fire gods assembled with their followers. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva were also present. Go on. When Daksha, the leader of the Prajapatis, entered that assembly, his personal bodily luster, as bright as the effulgence of the sun, the entire assembly was illuminated, and all the assembled personalities became insignificant in his presence. Influenced by his personal bodily luster, all the fire gods and other participants in that great assembly, with the exceptions of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, gave up their own sitting places and stood in respect for Daksha. Daksha was adequately welcomed by the president of the great assembly, Lord Brahma. After offering Lord Brahma respect, Daksha, by the order of Brahma, properly took his seat. Before taking his seat, however, Daksha was very much offended to see Lord Shiva sitting and not showing him any respect. At that time, Daksha became greatly angry, and his eyes glowing, he began to speak very strongly against Lord Shiva. Purport. Lord Shiva, being the son-in-law of Daksha, was expected to show his father-in-law respect by standing with the others. But because Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are the principal demigods, their positions are greater than Daksha's. Daksha, however, could not tolerate this, and he took it as an insult by his son-in-law. Previously also, he was not very much satisfied with Lord Shiva, for Shiva looked very poor and was niggardly in dress. Okay, we're going to leave it at that. We'll begin the text 9 tomorrow. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, the first thing I want to mention before I forget is that notice how it's so important to stand when a great personality is being honored or comes into the room. This is standard. If you look in the Krishna book, you'll find that happens all the time. When Krishna comes in, then he stands to offer respect, and then you bow down. Now, we used to have here in the temple that when Tulsi came in, we'd all bow down, Vrindaya Tulsi Devi. And then, as we said the English, we continued sitting. And only when the kirtan started did we start the arti start. I don't know if you remember that. But I pointed out that that's not showing proper respect, so now everyone properly stands up. Now, it's also incumbent, and I remember this, maybe you can confirm this, Maharaj, that Prabhupada said long, long ago that whenever an artik is going on, one should stand, should be standing, right?
That's true.
Right. And yet we find that that's not always the case. I remember in New Vrindavan, I used to go to the Festival of Inspiration. I think they discontinued that now, but that was a yearly thing, and I would go there, and a lot of devotees would come, especially from the East Coast. It was a nice festival. So in New Vrindavan, for those who haven't been there, they have their own magnificent Nrsimhadev deity in his own little altar. And the way it works is they have the regular artik like we have for the Mangal arti. And then the curtains close on Radha Vrindavan Chandra and the other deities. And then they open on the little special altar, just like they have in Mayapur. And there's a whole arti being done. But for the life of me, I couldn't get everyone to stand because everyone is so used to sitting and they want to play the harmonium, so I ended up just standing up in the back. So try to remember that. When there's an arti going on the altar, then one should be standing and showing proper respect. That is one of the signs of respect. And I noticed that wasn't done in Laguna Beach during that festival. But be that as it may, that's just a side point here. So we're embarking now on this pastime of the cursing back and forth between the Daksha and the followers of Lord Shiva, and eventually the self-immolation of Sati, the daughter of Daksha, who met, and the wife of Shiva, due to her father being so inimical toward her husband. And she just couldn't take being related to him, and so she, by mystic power, by this pranayama, she was able to generate so much fire in her body that she self-immolated. This is one of the yogic power. So that's the main theme here, which I wanted to touch on, was the danger of too much pride. And where does that pride come from? And how devotees have to be constantly on the guard of that, because it is very destructive to one's devotional life and devotional creeper, as we said. So, the first thing you learn when you come in touch with Krishna consciousness is that there's an awful lot of bowing down. The bowing down is, and sometimes we find that there's a resistance to that, because in the culture, so-called culture as we have today, the whole idea is to puff oneself up and compete, rugged individualism, right? And who am I going to bow down? You know, Prabhu, there's a famous talk Prabhu would have. I think it was probably in when he was in San Francisco in the early years, when he stayed there for a few months, and all kinds of people were coming in, you know. And one guy, I don't know if he was on LSD or not, but he refused to bow down. Everyone's bowing, he refused to bow down. And he made it known, he vocalized that, I'm not going to bow down. So Prabhupada discovered that you're not going to bow down? And the gist of it was that at a certain point you must bow down, because you're dying, or you're very ill and you're lying down, and eventually you die, and that's a form of bowing down. And bowing down means surrendering one's pride and actually just submitting. And you're submitting to Krishna in this all-powerful form, death. Krishna says, Mrityu sarva haraschaham. In the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is identifying himself with all kinds of very powerful, magnificent, beautiful aspects of the world, such as the ocean, of bodies of water on the ocean. And we can see, if you walk down to the ocean, there's a certain amount of awe that you have there. There's a powerful body of water, there's all of these waves coming, very, very deep and unfathomable. And we know, anyone who knows the history, that at a certain time that ocean can rise up, a tsunami, and cause great havoc in the beach areas, such as we are. So there's a lot of respect to the ocean, and Krishna says, of bodies of water, I am the ocean. So in that chapter, he also says, Mrityu sarva haraschaham, that I am death, and which takes away everything from you. Now that's very pertinent to our subject matter, because why was Daksha so proud? Well, he was entrusted with the great responsibility of propagating the praja, the citizens of the whole universe. Brahma, he's one of the main Prajapatis, progenitors, and he was very expert at it. That's why he is called Daksha. So, and he described he had a effulgence. In other words, he had a certain amount of tejas and power, but because he let he became intoxicated with it. And that caused him this false pride, and because of this superficial relationship with Shiva as his son-in-law, he lost sight of Shiva's actual position, which is practically on the level of God. Lord Shiva has his special tattva. We say there are certain tattvas. There's the Vishnu tattva, and there's the Jiva tattva, and there's the Shiva tattva. He's in between. He's Vishnu relating with the material energy. Vishnu himself doesn't actually consort with the material energy. The glance of Mahavishnu is said to be Sada Shiva, isn't it? And he impels or injects the living entities into the Mahatattva, and everything starts going from there. So it's just like that, and so Shiva is that glance in some ways, and so he is actually contacting material energy. And therefore he's not quite on the level of Vishnu. And we find in the list of qualities, the 64 qualities of Krishna. So there's this division, 50, and 5 more, and then 4 unique ones for Krishna. So the 5 more than even Jivas have, Shiva can have. Ata panchagune ankshena girishadisu sada swarupa sampratak sarva gyo nityanutanak satchidananda samana sarvasiddhina shevata. These are his 5. So sada swarupa sampratak. He is not, he's in his swarup. It's not that Shiva is an ordinary conditioned soul with a soul in the body. You know, he's in his eternal condition. He's the greatest Vaishnava, so he's always aware of his relation with Krishna. He's omniscient, but Prabhupada says it says Angshena, and you get this concept of partial omniscience. Just like you have perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. In English, that doesn't quite compute. It's just like you've heard this phrase. Any 8th grade English teacher, if their student writes something and says, "Oh, he's really very, very unique," so you can't be very, very unique. Unique means it's one of a kind. You can't be very unique. You're either dead, it's not very dead. So the same thing is there with perfect in English, but in Krishna Lila we have perfect, more perfect, most perfect. So you have the perfect Lila, the Dwarka, but more perfect is even in Mathura, and most perfect is Vrindavan. So similarly, you have this omniscience of Shiva, but it's not the same standard of omniscience as Krishna. That I know every little thing, everything that's happened in the past, everything that's happening now, and everything that will happen in the future. That's the gold standard of omniscience. So Shiva has this omniscience to some degree. Nityanuktanak, he's always young. You don't see Shiva getting old with the gray hair and everything. Satchidananda Sandramga, his body is composed of concentrated eternity, knowledge and bliss. Sandra means to concentrate. And Sarva Siddhi Nishevata, and he always has the yogic siddhis in full. Living in an ordinary living cannot have these qualities. So he's very great, very great, and he's properly sitting there. He and Brahma offered respect to Daksha. He honored him and said it. So Daksha, he became intoxicated with his position, and practically speaking, he's almost committing suicide here by showing this fantastic disrespect, which caused a big brouhaha in the sacrifice and the counter cursing and so forth. But really what happened later on, which we'll read, is when he was performing another sacrifice and it was a big festival, and Sati naturally wanted to go. Shiva said, "Don't go." She went anyway, and still Daksha was disrespecting her and disrespecting Shiva, and so she couldn't take it anymore. She self-immolated, which is described here. So just to show the danger of it, we'll see how an example in history. Ramchandra Puri. Now Ramchandra Puri was one of the exalted disciples of Madhavendra Puri. But at that final point in which Madhavendra Puri was lying on his disappearance bed, and he was chanting this famous verse, we should all know this verse, Aidina Dayadhanata He Matada Nataka Davalokya Se Vidiyam Tadaloka Katadam Tayata Brahmati Kinkaromyaham. This is Madhavendra Puri's famous verse. And he had Ishwar Puri there, very humble and surrendered disciple, who was taking care of all of his needs, and encouraging him in his mood. But this Ramchandra Puri comes and says, what is this? Because what this verse says is, in the mood of Radharani, Ai means, alas, oh, Ai Dina Dayadra, you who are whose heart is melting with mercy for the most wretched. Dina Dayadra Natahe, oh my master, oh master of Mathura. So this means she's in Vrindavan, he's in Mathura, so she's in separation. Kadava Loki say, when shall I see you again? And Madhavendra is completing the mood of this verse, and he's, this agony of separation, which is what Lord Chaitanya showed. Crying and calling out desperately. Aridiyam tadaloka katadam, due to not seeing him, my heart is breaking. What shall I do now? So Madhavendra said, what is this? He should be in the Brahmabhuta stage, Nashochati, Nakanchati, Samaksara, he should be very peaceful, So Madhavendra, so he had become proud with his spiritual attainments. He disciple of Madhavendra Puri. And so Madhavendra kicked him out. I'll get out of here. I don't want to see you. If I see you at the time I leave this body, I don't know what's my destination going to be. And Ramchandra Puri then became a great offender against Lord Chaitanya and his devotees. The pastime. He would criticize, he would conspire, and he would figure out how to make, throw a big feast and then accuse him of overeating. Lord Chaitanya sees some ants. I see you're eating sweets. So now he's not supposed to eat. So, but Lord Chaitanya being perfect, always observing perfect etiquette. This is his guru's godbrother, so he respected him. He said, "Oh, okay, I should eat less." So from then on, he ate half of what he usually did, and the devotees saw it as a big, hammer on their heads. They were praying when Ramachandra Puri would leave Puri, and eventually he did. He said, "Oh, alas, we could get back." So this is the danger of pride, and we see in our so much of our literature. When Prabhupada, I was just reading the Lilamrita, and Prabhupada, he met O.B.L. Kapoor. This came up recently, I think, in one of our readings. O.B.L. Kapoor was his godbrother, really highly respected. He was really friends with him. And when Prabhupada went back to Vrindavan, in 1967, he was ill. And he renewed his acquaintance, his relation with O.B.L. Kapoor, who was then staying there. And I remember working in BTG, and suddenly we had an article by O.B.L. Kapoor in the BTG, American BTG. Prabhupada asked him to write something, So Prabhupada went back there, and they were conversing, and what came up was that, I have the formula, the secret for how one can advance in devotional service. Anyone can advance. And O.B.L. said, really, I want to know that secret. What is that? You know what Prabhupada said? Trinadapi Sudicena. Tadoriva Sahishnana. Amanyanamana Kirtani Sadahari, which we learned from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we should keep around our necks. Meaning you don't ever forget it. That while chanting, one should embrace this mood. And what is that? Trinadapi, to feel oneself lower than the blade of grass in the street. This is really humility. To feel I'm practically nothing here. Meaning I should serve everybody. And I should, always be recognizing my lowly condition and chanting. And therefore to be tolerant. Which also has to do with preaching. In other words, if you're trying to give Krishna consciousness to others, automatically you have to take a humble position. Because as soon as you have a little pride, you can't do anything. Any book distributor will tell you. As soon as you feel, we're going to know it's going to stop. So you have to feel, And tolerant. Tolerance is also an essential element of serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because you must tolerate. If you can't tolerate, then you can't really be a surrendered soul. And always offering honor to others and never expecting honor for oneself. 180 degrees from Daksha, right? Showing no honor to the most honorable Shiva and always expecting, why have I been disrespected? So the devotee is it's always all glories to Krishna, all glories to the Guru, all glories to the assembled devotees, and no glory for me. And why is that so important? Because the false ego really grows. It's like a incrustation that grows around this pride. Your false sense of pride is in your body, your position, your color, your money, the power. All of that just makes you so proud, falsely proud. When at any time you could be brought low. Prabhupada I hear lectures all the time, and Prabhupada is bringing up this point. What is our real situation? We're moving along in this fragile little body, machine that can go bad at any time. I went to the dentist a little while ago, and somehow after the dentist, now I'm feeling pain in my teeth. It's supposed to be the other way around. But somehow or other, he did something and he stimulated a nerve. Hopefully it'll die down. I don't know. But I've had really bad toothaches. Prabhupada says, look at all these false gods, and then they have a toothache, they run to the dentist. What kind of God is that? But somehow we get puffed up, and if you get enough money, you get enough power, you're the leader of a certain tribe or a nation, you have so many millions of dollars, billions of dollars. Can you imagine having $143 billion like this Amazon guy? It's obscene. You can't use all that money. What's the point? So, but it makes you very proud. I can do anything I want. I can buy this politician. I can go here, do that. So, didn't we learn? What's the pastime in Krishna book where that's so commonly brought up? Who remembers? The one where Narada Muni is involved?
No, the Kubras would agree with
Yeah. You know, that ends up with Krishna pulling down the Yamalarjan trees, but there's a whole soliloquy there. I love this. Narada Muni gives a whole speech on the dangers of too much wealth. And that's what happened with Nanda Kuber and Managriva. They were the sons of Kuvera. So Prabhupada mentions it's like they're big playboys. You know, when you have all the money you need, so then you just enjoy all the time. So they're in this Gandakini river and the heavenly planets with the nymphs, you know, enjoying, Prabhupada's euphemism. And drinking somaras and, you know, becoming intoxicated. So so they became so proud that again they didn't offer respect to the respectable person. This is the real danger for devotees, because we're constantly, as devotees, we should be in that mood of constantly glorifying the Lord, glorifying His devotees, and looking for ways to serve, which is just 180 degrees opposite to being proud and puffed up and, you know, honor me. So this is the material disease. Is the root is false ego, false pride. That's why the word, you know, we use the word false ego, but there's a word in English called egotism, which we don't usually use so much. It's a little different from egoism. Egotism especially means puffed up and self-centered, self-aggrandizing like that. And even ordinary people know that's not good to be. Too egotistical, you know. So Krishna consciousness means that we recognize who we actually are. We were just discussing last night Lord Chaitanya's famous verse, Jivera Swarupa Krishnera Nityadas. If we're not acting in our swarup, our natural position, then we'll never become happy and peaceful. We'll always be. It's just like if you're not properly situated in your, you know, in the material world, in your swadharma, a square peg in a round hole, so to speak. You know, you can never be at ease because you're not actually doing what's naturally suited to you. So as jivas, as living entities, which we all are, we all share with everybody, we're naturally servants of Krishna. That's what Lord Chaitanya says. That's what Krishna says as Lord Chaitanya. Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. That the real swarup of every jiva is to be eternally a servant of Krishna. But who knows that? This is the world of forgetfulness. So reminding us of that is not enough. We have to take on the process, the discipline by which we can live it and feel it and actually feel comfortable in that way. And that's the process of sadhana bhakti. Vaidhi bhakti is acting according to the rules and regulations laid down by such great acharyas as Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, to evoke, to excavate that very mood of devotion that has been forgotten and buried. So there are certain do's and don'ts, and they're going to go against our, you know, conditioning. Means that, but you notice that, I mean, I remember that the first thing, and it's a great blessing, is menial service. You know, the pots, and even more menial, what we used to call the stool room, clean it, bhaktatam, you know, and you do it, and while you're doing it, you're chanting Hare Krishna. I remember one of them, unforgettable, this wasn't the stool room, this was the temple room, but I was on my hands and knees mopping with, you know, by hand. The temple room was small enough in the Brooklyn Temple where you could do that with about 20 minutes. And I was, you know, told we had a maha cleaner. We had so many devotees that every morning you could have a 15-minute maha cleaner for the whole temple, which is great. You know, one would do the stairs, one would do the temple, one would do this and that. So I had, you know, joined a couple of weeks earlier, and there I was, hands and knees, you know, and there were the deities open, Radha Govinda, and they're mopping away, you know, and chanting, and the tape which had been recently made of the Govinda prayers, and we heard that regularly, but we didn't always hear the rest of it. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya. You know, you remember singing that? I swear I thought it was a man for many, many years. But you know, and so many other songs, and there's that playing, and I said, boy, I'm nicely situated here, you know. You felt, because, you know, there's Radha Govinda there chanting like this. So it's a big kind of armor that you put on yourself, on your heart. You know, this false pride, false ego, and that has to be broken. It has to be dissolved by the powerful process of mostly chanting the holy name, but all the other processes of bhakti which should be accompanied by the chanting. And in that mood, and also hearing, and regularly, so that we get everything in perspective. Here's Krishna, the controller of all. He's all-pervading, the source of all the energies. Anything I can do, I do with my vital energy, intelligence, everything. Well, where's that coming from? It's all coming from God. It's coming from Krishna. So where's the source of my pride? It's foolish to be proud. It's much more conducive of peace and happiness to be humble and to direct our energies in serving the Lord, plugging in, so that we can feel enlivened at the glorification of Krishna and the holy name, and at others becoming devotees. That's the source of your pleasure. Not in your being separately a controller and a master and an enjoyer of your senses. That's look at these big movers, shakers and movers, so-called, in this world. Do they look happy? George Soros with about $75 billion. This other guy, what's his name? I can't get the name now. He made his money in gambling in this island off of China where they all gamble. The Chinese love to gamble. And the guy's one of the most ugly people in the world. Ailson, some guy. You know. And they're always buying this, making this deal, trying to undermine this election, they have it all. But you look at their faces, oh please, just give me a simple bhakta. I'd rather be, And they've done tests and see that those who are most driven to make money and power, they're always in anxiety. They're taking pills to sleep and everything. Devotees have no trouble sleeping. Sometimes they sleep too much. So watch out for false pride. This is the lesson here, and how destructive it can be. It destroys this relation between the father and the daughter, and Shiva. His minions, Virabhadra and all those ghosts and goblins. They were all his allies, and they just went and destroyed all his Daksha, and he became a goat and a goat's head, and all because of false pride. You think, why do wars take place? Think of the World War II. The whole delusion of the Aryan race. I mean, of course, there is such thing, the Aryans, but they're completely distorted. Even the swastika, they spoiled the swastika for a millennium. So you know what swastika actually means? Swasti, suasti, be good. It's a blessing, right? Swasti is a swastyastu vishvasya kavak prasidadam. It's a word in a verse that Prahlad Maharaj has used. May everyone be pacified by all the demons by may they practice bhakti yoga. Let's concentrate on it. So it became swastika, that symbol. And it was completely perverted. All because of, nationalism, racialism, racism. It's all built on this false pride in the body. It's built in my body, So that's the enemy of bhakti. And we can learn a lot from this lesson, how these coming chapters. And then also in this canto, later, Lord Shiva will come in the pastime with King Vattanapali and his sons, the Prachetas, where he sings the song of Shiva, which is a devotional song. And at one point he prays to see the lotus feet of Krishna and like that. Very instructive for all Shaivites. I remember, I don't know if you were here at this time, this was maybe before your time, Dr. Devori, remember Dr. Devori? So we would do a big thing for Shivaratri, and I used to do the evening arti, and a couple times a week it turned out to be that day. So I'm doing the evening, the Sandhya arti. So I see they set up the Shiva Linga right here, I think right before or after the fountain, and they're offering everything to the Shiva Linga. All the boga, and this is bogus, And there was Dr. Devori, bless his soul. He was a great soul, but he had a real like Durvasa Muni mood, and he was dressed. He had his long hair, and he was offering all these prayers. I think it was prayers to Shiva. And after I said, "This is not good. We have to. If we're going to observe Shivaratri, we have to do it right." So the next time Shivaratri came around, I said, "Okay, let me conduct the service." So we had that kirtan, Chaturmukhe, in the middle of the kirtan, Panchamukhe, she was singing Hare Krishna and Lord Prabhu. And then I read that song of Lord Shiva, I read from it. You know, that Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava, and the proper way to do it is to offer all the prasadam normally, and then you can offer the prasadam first to the Shiva, and then you can offer to the devotee. You know, so we can, because the tendency is to worship Shiva for material benefit. But he likes you to worship him for bhakti. You know, Lord Chaitanya, when he went to South India, he went to a lot of Shiva temples. And Murari Gupta, he wrote a book, Chaitanya Charita, I think it was. It's another book about Lord Chaitanya. And he has the prayers that Lord Chaitanya would offer to Shiva. And he's offering Shiva in the mood of, he's going to please bestow bhakti to Govinda upon me. That's what he's praying for the Lord Shiva, not for something material, like Prakasura. We won't get into that. So that's one of the lessons we can get from this pastime. It's very dramatic, and we can meditate in the next few weeks on what's going to happen here. Okay, any questions or comments on Daksha and Sati and Lord Shiva? Shall they end with something sweet? Madhuraya Samarpayi. Okay, here's the mood of humility that the devotee feels. Bhakti Zak reminded me of a sloka I memorized many years ago, and I know a similar one. So, Manasiddhapani Jushte Labdapatos Vidushte Timalagahana Rupe Hanta Sangsara Kupe Ajidanakalaraksha He Tamundada Daksham Upanayima Mahaste Bhakti Rajam Namaste. So the connection is that word Daksham. Did you notice Daksham? Daksham means expert. And he's saying, you are expert at giving us the rope, you know, that will save us from birth and death. So, this is all our condition. Fallen in this deep and dark and dirty well of Maya. Threatened by the snake of lust, whose venom burns like fire. Helplessly I pray, O Lord, whose strength is ne'er in doubt. Place the rope of bhakti in my hands and pull me out. That rope of bhakti is all the instructions we've been given. So when we follow them carefully, we're holding on to the rope. Krishna is giving the rope, but it's our responsibility to hold on to the rope. Otherwise, even he can't save us if we're determined to stay in Maya. But we have all the facility, we just have to follow carefully, and Krishna will pull us out of this world. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare.
So the devotees should stand up when the Nrsimha prayer is being chanted?
No, because there's not another arti going on.
There's an arti going on.
No, but that's just that's not what, I mean.
It's not an arti.
Yeah. The arti, you know, they actually have incense and you know, just like in Mayapur.
The Deepa.
Yeah. And that's what you see in Mayapur. Everyone's standing. No one ever sits for the Sringapur.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
When we say the translation of the prayer, everybody
should stand. Yeah. So in the temples where you go, the tendency is to stay sitting.
That's true. What happened to the actual Tulasi when we don't have it?
She doesn't do well in here, and we think because the water too much, but I think it's the lights. The lights are not good. Zach can tell you the whole story. He's in charge of it.
We have only one.
We have one,
the right side.
the right side, all the others are huge.
They can't be carried.
You have to move.
Yeah, we have to go. Are we growing small?
We're
in the process of growing.
All right.
But I think,
Thank you for coming, by the way.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Oh. Exactly. Please forgive me for making a joke about your name.
No, that's okay. No, that's kind of funny.
I should agree with you then. You're a great soul.
No. Great.
You know, Bhakti Bhagawatsaptaha is famous for walking.
Yeah.
And I said, Maharaj, you know Bhakti Bhagawatsaptaha?
Yeah.
You have a great soul.
You have great souls, that's funny.
Do what you're doing, you need great souls.
¿A qué hora se va el martes? Tengo que mirar.
Yes, it's very nice.
Creo que
Very nice seat.
Más sol.
you know, Prashant, please.
I'm gonna check it out to be sure.
You're thinking after lunch?
After lunch.
There's a quote where Prabhupada said, if you chant Hare Krishna for 50 years,
You wanna cook?
become perfect.
50?
50.
No?
Let's see.
You will become perfect.
It seems to be liking yours from
Actually, brother.
chanting.
I started.
15.
I'd like to speak to you guys and be prepared to chant that, whatever.
Again, sir. Stop it. Jump on. Jump it. Jump it.
All around. That's really, it's senior man, he's young, but you know,
Yamdam. Yamdam.
I have to go, I have a business file that will come. Okay, Shan, be happy.
He told me for breakfast and
So, those books have given me a tremendous amount of knowledge, you know.
when
But right now, personally,
he's bringing
talk to him.
I want to go here.
Because I have to.
today is probably the best day of
But I'll
all.
see you, you know, I'm here. Very nice.
Why?
I want to bring her with me tonight to the lounge.
How do you want to know?
But this is something I need to get all of the truth out before I bring her in. So that everybody knows.
Of course I'm coming. I was
There's
interested.
anything shady here.
You can come up.
Yeah, I did.
Trying to
Yes, I did.
achieve that.
Oh, we went to Seymour Village.
Yeah.
So just tell everyone.
I came up with
One Thursday, you didn't come.
No. Well, there was one Thursday where something happened. I forgot what happened. Oh yeah, I tried to go somewhere or do something. I don't know. Something happened. I forgot.
Were you listening? That one day, when Mala was giving the class, and he mentioned you and Tirtha Maharaj had went to, I think to LA. You guys have met God.
What did he say? Something like that. I was just laughing.
What did he say? Was he just,
I don't remember exactly. I think we went to this store, we went through the books, I think. And the guy say, oh, I was waiting for you. Oh, yeah? He was God. So I just started laughing.
Yeah, I can imagine you just standing there laughing at him.
And he was the same thing. He was like, I was like,
Oh, God.
that guy. Yeah, he was waiting for us, man. The spring.
sing with us all together, everyone. Hare Krishna.